Hi everyone, it's Roger here from What's On at DisneyPlus.com. It's time for our weekly live Q&A. Let me know if you can hear me in the live check. There's just a little bit of an issue with the mic. But yeah, so this is our weekly live Q&A. So every week we do this live on YouTube. And if you're a YouTube channel member, you can join in the chat and put in your questions. You can also use the super chat function as well to send in questions and stuff like that. We've also got questions in advance from our YouTube channel members and patrons. I generally jump between the two. You can hear me, which is always good. Yeah, so we've got lots of questions and stuff, a lot of them about Hulu, and obviously we've got like Destination D23 going on this weekend. We've had lots of stuff going on. It's been a pretty busy weekend, a little bit more busier than usual. But yeah, so there we go. So we've got lots of bits and pieces. A big hello to all the people that were in the live chat. So you can see we've got Tim, Lester, Knoxwave, Tim, and Sosina. Thank you very much for joining us. Dog hair. Right, so we've got lots of questions in here. Let's have a quick look here. So we'll start off with the top question at the very top here, and I've just realized I have not got that one done. So my main question was how much is Disney going to be paying for Comcast's stake in Hulu? So this is going to be, we've got quite a few questions about this today, and there's a lot about it. Earlier this week, it was revealed by Comcast's CEO that they've pulled forward the pull and put clause that they've got in their contract that they had from 2019, and now means that from the end of this month, they're going to do a valuation based on that date, and then they can come to a deal. Ideally, it can be called then, so it might be November, it might be a little bit different. So with that there, Disney have to get a valuation in, Comcast get an evaluation in, they then compare them. If they're within 10% of each other, they can then just split the difference and then just basically go for it. If they're very far apart, they have to go to more arbitration, get some more valuations. If they're still apart, there will then be a third party brought in. Now, in theory, that means that could drag on a little bit. Apparently, Comcast want to get it done as well. They want to spend the money. Personally, and this is just as a pure guess, I think they've already had the valuations done. They've already agreed on a price. And I would not be at all surprised if on that 30th, they actually announced that they've done a deal. Not saying it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did, because I don't see the point of why they would have made the announcement of it moving forward if it wasn't in Comcast's interest to get it over and done with. So there's a lot of stuff coming in there. So as Mamo said, with Disney wanting Hulu's value to raise to about 27 billion, and Comcast wanting it to be over 30 billion, what do you think the final value will be once they get the deal done? I think it's going to be somewhere around 27 to 30 billion is going to be the value of Hulu. And now at the top end, so 33% of that belongs to Comcast. However, there was a deal that they put in place that meant that if they weren't funding Hulu, it could be reduced in years down to a minimum of 21%. And we do know that Comcast did stop funding Hulu, and therefore there is going to be a devaluation of their stock. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. If you were Comcast, would you rather put in like $1.5 billion into Hulu each year, or just be like, just knock off 1.5 billion off my bill at the end? You just be a bit like, you might as well just do it then. So it might not be as high as everyone, and that quite often seems to get missed out when people talk about it. When I see so many media analysts and people talking about it, that whole aspect seems to get completely lost in the fact of, and then you get some people that are literally thinking Disney are paying Comcast 30 billion to buy their stake out, and that's like, no, it's not going to be as much as that. It's still going to be too much, and they should have dealt with this years ago, but nevertheless. Tim says, do you think the 5-episode drop for Goosebumps season 1 will work for Disney Plus, and will it work in the future? I think it's a little bit of a trial. I think it's also with the Friday the 13th. It kind of makes sense. Personally, I feel they should have done Goosebumps a couple of weeks earlier and just had like maybe do a 3-episode drop, because that does seem to work quite well with getting people in, and then have it finish on like Halloween with like maybe a double episode, rather than it's like seems to be going on into like November. Seems a bit weird. Tim says, when the NRL CBA strike over, I'm guessing that's the over deal that signed 18 months. How long do you think the actors and writers would take to get a deal, or will it take 18 months like the NRL? I'm not sure what that is, to be honest. It could be a sports team, a riders team, not too sure. But I don't know when they're going to make a deal. I'm hoping that this week they start doing something. I mean, all this just talk between them all, just like, well, we're talking, but we're not talking. But you haven't talked to us, but we haven't talked. Just like, just talk. Matt says, do you think Disney will look? How do you think Disney Plus will look after Hulu merges with Disney Plus? I think Disney Plus is going to have a drastic overhaul. I think it's going to look. I think it's still going to look very similar because I mean, streaming services, there ain't that much they can do it. But I think we're going to have a nice new look in Hulu. A nice new look in Disney Plus. We're going to see some new sections, new features, new options. I just think they're going to give it a little bit of some TLC and give it some upgrades because ultimately we haven't seen any movement on how Disney Plus looks really, bar like Disney Plus Day like 2 years ago where they kind of gave us a few features and then kind of took them away. There hasn't really been any new updates, so it would make sense that if they were going to do it, they would do it then. I mean, personally, if they could do it, I'd rather they started rolling them out slowly rather than all at once. It doesn't do anything. But yeah, let's jump into the live version. Let's see what we've got going on in here. So let's go to the top. So Baba Charlie says, how do you deal with Disney haters? I think it depends on how you mean. If you come in here and you say, or on the YouTube or on Facebook or on anything like that, or you message whatever, and you're against something that Disney's done, I've not got a problem with that. Not everyone can like everything. If you don't like Welcome to Wrexham or the Little Mermaid or something like that, that's fine. That's up to you. It doesn't matter. Everyone's got different opinions. If you like something and I don't, or you like something that I don't, it doesn't matter which way it goes. I don't have a problem with that. If you don't feel like they're making mistakes with like how they're advertising and how they're doing stuff, that's all sweet. I've got no worries with that. It's like if the comments and stuff, if you've got a different opinion, it doesn't matter. The only thing is what it is when I see it, and I see a few people where it is just constantly like negative, a little like, and you start going, look, you're almost along the lines of, you don't seem to like anything about this, so why do you keep coming in here? Like, if you don't like what they're doing and you don't like what what they're making, and you don't want to watch it anymore, and you've just had enough and you don't want to deal with this, fine, that's your decision. But why do you need to keep going on the social media talking about it? Just feels weird. It's like, if I don't like anything anymore, I don't watch it. And that's the end of it. I unfollow the stuff on social media and I don't want to be doing with it anymore. That's generally, if I've got bored of something, I've bought it. But there is like a weird thing with Disney where like people just seem to get off on like just whatever they do is wrong. And it's almost like it's like nerd sports, whether it's like they can pick against, and I don't know. It just seems a bit weird. Like I said, if you got a problem with Disney, no, I don't have a problem. I have problems with Disney. There's not everything I like that they do. I think that's normal. I think that's like in anything that you like, you can complain and you can moan, your favorite football team, your favorite wrestling, your favorite video game. There's going to be stuff that you don't like, and there's nothing wrong with criticizing or moaning when something's not right. I don't think there's any problem in that. But if all you ever did was moan about that and you don't enjoy it anymore, why would you keep playing the game, keep watching the movie, keep watching the sport, sports? That's the kind of way I look at it. It's like you get to a certain point, like if you really don't like it anymore, maybe it's just time just to let that go. Tim says, is the Haunted Mansion going to be a global release on Disney Plus, as it only got released in theatrical release in Australia on August the 31st? Right. So at the minute, obviously, the time zone, I think it's like 7 o'clock in the morning in Australia, Sydney, maybe a little bit later. Tim, you can let me know. So I'm guessing really, to be honest, that the PR teams in Disney in Australia haven't really woken up yet, or they were only they might not have had anything scheduled to go. We'll find out probably later today. It looks like it's going to be pretty much global because I've seen on the UK Disney Plus, we've got it coming on the same day. I've seen it on a number of different other countries, the Netherlands, Brazil, a few other. We also here in the UK didn't get it until early last month, a little bit earlier than Australia. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if it was. But yeah, I am just holding off on updating October's Australia list until I know for definite that it's coming. So it's 4 a.m. in Canberra right now. Yeah. So I'm guessing the PR teams are going to be in Sydney. So they're going to be, an hour ahead of you. So it's still very early. You're up really early. That's really up. But Canberra's nice. Canberra's a nice little city. Lester says, "Hi Roger, what's going on? I got an email saying that Hulu's going to increase its price to $17.99 on October the 12th. They're already paying $14.99 for no ads." Yeah, so the no ads version is going to be going up to $17.99. I believe that's in. So that is obviously October the 12th. I wanted a little bit later, but yeah. So the ad-free version of Hulu is going up in cost. The reason is, again, they are trying to get more of you onto the ad tier version or onto the bundle. So if, for example, you can, for $17.99, you can get the ad-free version of Hulu. But for $19.99, you can get the ad-free version of Hulu and Disney Plus combined. So that's what that might be a good option for you. That might save you some bucks. You can go on to the Hulu or the Disney Plus bundle together for $9.99, which is the one they really want you on. So you got some options. But yeah, Hulu has gone up, but apparently only like less than 10% of Hulu subscribers are actually on the ad-free tier. That's why they've pushed the price up so much, because so few people are on it. It doesn't really hit people. It's no one really. It's like because the Disney Plus price rise so much, everyone kind of got used to the ad-free version. But on Hulu, so many of them are on the opposite way around. It doesn't have the same impact. Let's see. Kayla says, yesterday I saw Joanne in cinemas and had a ton of fun. It's interesting seeing that 2023 Cannes has returned to cinema and Hollywood is in disarray. I think it's good in some ways that some films that are getting more attention in cinemas with less stuff coming out, that might give them a little bit more scope. Maybe as well, just more people are willing to try some different things out. But I think on a whole, I think going to cinemas is just so much. People are just going a lot less. That's one of the key things. Noxo says, when do you think Disney will open to buy tickets for D23 Expo? So they just said spring, so that could be March, April, May. So that's kind of when I'm personally want them to do it as soon as they can. I would like them to do it as soon as they can, so we can sort out what's going on. One thing Kayla's noticed is that when the news was reported about Comcast agreeing to the transition, the guilds criticized Iger while letting Brian Roberts off the hook. Yeah, well, Iger's just an easy topic, and also because Iger's paying for it, so he's got the money for that, but not for them. And I think at the minute, just bashing it's one of those things. They're just an easy target. I think. I mean, they just want to get this stuff sorted. I really hope they get these. Just like this week, whatever was going on with the writers last week, where they were just like trashing each other about the fact that they don't have an offer. Maybe just reach out and telephone each other, going like, "Did you give us an offer? Did you not? Right? Okay, can we confirm what we've got? Let's get it in place. Let's review it and get some movement on this, please. Get it sorted, people." Matt says, were you surprised that Haunted Mansion is coming to Disney Plus in so early in October? I imagine it would have been closer to the 90-day window by releasing it in late October. I would have thought that it was going to be like end of October with like more of a digital run. I'm surprised they're even doing the digital release on the same day. Maybe they've just essentially just written this film off the fact that the box office isn't going to be much. They announced something today. I was a little bit surprised they did it during the event, but actually, in some ways, it made a lot of sense because you're at a theme park, So I get why they did it, and it looked quite cool with like the dancers coming out, and they did that. Looks good. Yeah, it was good. It was certainly nice. Kenny says, with that said, do you feel the guilds are making a mistake focusing too much on criticizing Bob Iger while letting them off the hook? I think it's just he's an easy target. He is like him and Zaslav, but Iger put his head out the window, and he's put it up there to get shot. He's put himself out there as the leading bad guy. So Soon says, do you think the writing strike will end in November? I hope it's done before then. I'd like it to be done this month if they could do it really soon. I think that would be, but yeah, I think it seems to be dragging on for ages. Kyle says, will you be going to D23 next year? Yes. Well, I hope so. If I can get my tickets, I have booked my flight and my accommodation. So I did that like within like an hour of them revealing the did some research, got some which hotels I'd kind of had an idea of where I wanted to stay. It was a lot easier this time because I obviously went last year. So yeah, so I have booked my flight and my accommodations, and I just need to get my ticket. So as earlier, I want to get those tickets out as soon as possible so I can know what I'm doing and start making plans. I've kind of already, the plans are already in motion, but I want to get my, all the bits and pieces sorted. Stuff RLL is the National Rugby League. CBA is a collective bargain agreement. It's a dispute between players and the league in Australia that lasted for months, but not amounted to a strike. Okay. That would make, yeah. Unfortunately, I don't know a lot about Australian rugby, and I know even less about English rugby. And I know that we did win last night. Carl says Disney lucked out by not having a D23 with the strikes this year, taking so long to get resolved, even though it's a Disney 100. Yeah, it was a shame. I mean, it would have been a real problem, I think, for them if they'd done D23, because this again, there's just not a lot of stuff they can announce. Everything being delayed, nothing that they have got lined up. Obviously, they can't film. I know there was a lot of like people like getting a little bit like frustrated at what they didn't announce today, and there wasn't really anything new. And it was like, did you expect anything different? I don't know. I kind of thought it was going to be the same. Carl says maybe the studios can try to meet separately with the unions. The problem is, it's a can of worms. If they separate out of deal with, because there was a little bit like that with the writers this week, where writers were trying to indicate that there was a problem between the studios. And it's like, well, I'm not surprised. I would expect there to be, if you've got 20 executives or 50 executives together in a room, they're not all going to agree. And there is going to be some ones that maybe think, and I think that the legacy studios maybe are more inclined to get a deal done because they've got other ways of making money where streamers haven't. But all of them are going to be more dependent on streaming later down the line. And I think the problem is they don't want to set up now for some of these issues like the residuals so much now, because if they give them 2% this year, they'll want 3% in 3 years and then 4% in 6 years, and not, that's just gonna. So I think they're trying to play hardball now, so they don't have to do it like long term. I think they're thinking much longer than that. Yeah, it's just unfortunate. I think a lot of the stuff they seem to be meeting on, like AI and stuff, but I think the residuals are going to be very, very tricky. I'll do a few more live ones. Ricardo says, "Hi Roger, Disney seems to renew its relationship with Prime Video because Prime Latin America different pages for ABC shows that have been updated with no release date." I think we are going to see a lot more. There'll be a lot more stuff being shared, especially with the ABC and the 20th television shows. It just makes a lot of sense for them to do that. It definitely makes a lot more sense. Tim says, "Why is Elemental coming this week after Little Mermaid, which came to Disney Plus last week?" I think it's just down. I mean, you got to look at it the other way around. Of Disney really stacked up, like from May to the end of July. They released so many films back to back to back that they were only a week or two apart anyway. And I feel like they could have done another week between that and Little Mermaid. They could have done. That could have easily been a thing. But yeah, I don't know. I think Elemental in some ways it's done its course, and now it's going to get a little bit of a boost. I think it's going to be good. Khaled says, "I do remember that WGA did report that they're open to negotiations directly with the studios for interim." Yeah, but see, that again, you kind of got to look at this through both sides. From the WGA side, this is a strategy to help try and get something through that they want. Trying to wriggle around the studios, it goes both ways. The studios are playing games to get the WGA to do stuff that they want, and the WGA are playing games. It's negotiations. It's all part of the process. So it makes sense for WGA to try. They're trying to kind of set the seed of dissent as well. It makes sense for them to do so. They could do it, but I think the trouble is these interim agreements, because I was reading about this with the Toronto Film Festival. A lot of films didn't want those interim agreements because then the streamers can't pick them up and they're the ones buying it. So that's going to be the problem with these interim ones. Is probably most of them are hoping that when it's all resolved, they'll be able to sell. But if they do it, it's very, very, very tricky. It's very, very tricky. Knox says, how do you enter D23 once you purchase a ticket? Do they send you a barcode? Because I might plan to LA to attend the event. So I think last year in with Star Wars Celebration, you generally buy your ticket. So they do different variations. They got 1 days, or you do the whole pass. And then sometimes as well, they offer a deluxe pass as well. They like to do a Jedi version or a sorcerer's version. And that allows you to go in for a different door and some different seating. But generally, yeah, you either get your day pass or your weekend pass. I don't know how it's going to work this year, next year's, with the whole fact that they're at the Honda Civic. I actually think that's a really cool idea in some ways, to try and make sure that we all get to see the big presentations in the arena. So then you can get 16,000 people. So there's, and it'll be quite nice as well of maybe having a little bit more free time during the day, so you can do smaller panels and stuff. And more importantly, they want you to spend money, because last year I went to all the main panels, and I actually got there I didn't realize on the Sunday after, the Sunday when I went in there, I'm because it was the one day I knew there wasn't any theme park stuff really, of stuff for Disney Plus, other than a few little bits. But I can actually walk around the because everything was so busy with so many queues for shopping and all the rest of it. Yeah, it was quite tricky. But yeah, so if you get your ticket, you can usually walk around and do well. Obviously, if you want to get in to see certain panels and stuff, you have to queue up and get in them. Some of the ones the Star Wars Celebration, you would have to go into a lottery. So this is, I think, the whole thing with at D23 next year, where they want to put the main presentations in the evening in the Honda Center, so that essentially then they can get 3 times as many people into those panels, which is fantastic. I mean, and there's nothing worse than being queued up to get in them. Okay, so do you feel Sony will be the first major studio to break and sign an interim agreement with the guilds? Once they do it, other legacy studios will follow? I don't know. I think I mean, there will be that kind of thing of if one of them breaks, then I could see them falling like dominoes. Especially if there's maybe Amazon or Netflix are the ones holding out. It's going to be interesting. So Sina says, so is it possible that the writing strike could end in October? I would like to get to, but we really don't know. Yeah, and any one of us here on the live chat, anyone watching at things, we've all going to have a guess. So it's going to be very tricky to know. Carl says, with Elemental this Wednesday, when do you think Indiana Jones will be released? I am thinking October. I think it's going to be after Haunted Mansion. I don't think they're going to do it now. I think September's stacked enough that I think it's going to be in there with. I think they're going to want to give it a little bit longer on digital as well to try and make people buy it. Ricardo said, I saw an article that says the long term there's only going to be 4 streaming services: Netflix, Apple, Amazon, and another. It could be Disney Plus or Max, but maybe Disney has more. I think there is room for multiple streaming services. I think the trouble is, again, is what you're seeing there is Netflix has been that advantage of they were first and they've been able to build this established. But there is a problem with Netflix of if their quality just keeps going the way it is, more and more people are pulling away because there is less interest. It's just the cool one, but they're going to probably be able to pick up stuff from Sony. I could see Paramount going back to licensing. They could license to Apple. They could license to all of them. I think Apple may be just stubborn enough that it carries on, and it might just be. I wouldn't necessarily think it's going to be the major one, because I don't think Apple is ever going to have the library and enough content to be one that you want to keep all the time. I am an Apple person. There's just not enough on there to warrant it. So I don't think that's going to be how that works. I think Disney is definitely going to be in. They are setting themselves up to be one of the core ones. They are a core brand. I think don't discount Comcast as well. Peacock. They've got that thing. I think Max has a capability that he could end up flipping very quickly to licensing out and go into the Sony system. So Suna says, do you think Disney will buy the other 33% of Comcast on September the 1st? I think it's going to get done. I think there's a stronger possibility that they are actually going to do that on that date and then it's done at the end of this year's financial year. So Disney can take the stock hit, get the things, and then next year it will look better. But I could be wrong. Could be totally wrong. Ricardo says, let's just forget the possibility of Apple buying Disney. Not again. Not Not again. Do you see any other studio trying to buy Disney like Sony or Paramount? Sony and Paramount don't have enough money. Paramount definitely. I think Paramount is only worth about like 9 or 10 billion. It's nowhere near got enough to buy that one. Yeah, and I don't think Sony they don't. I mean, I think they could very easily just go back into just video games and stuff. Right, Kyle says, "Are you looking forward to that Monarch show on Apple TV?" It's funny enough, we just watched the trailer today, and that might be enough to get me to subscribe for a month. Barbara Trolling says, "How likely is Warner Brothers will split? Because people have made posts saying that Warner Brothers needs to be split. I'm worrying about that happening." I think it wouldn't surprise me if he starts selling bits off at a certain point. I believe is in like a year's time that they can start doing stuff. I could see there being a merger of some kind, maybe, but it's going to have to be with someone smaller. I mean, if there is a chance that maybe Comcast could be in it, I mean, they could or maybe with Paramount, some kind of deal could be done. Maybe they merge together and there's like assets and stuff. I think Zaslav will make his money and then he'll go. But I think we are seeing a point of view where they need scale, and one of them, I think Comcast needs more content, and I don't think Max is enough. And I think the cable television system in the US is falling to bits. This whole stuff with Spectrum and stuff, there's so much problems with the cable networks. It's basically crumbling at this point. Tim says, "I only got Apple TV to watch Ted Lasso." Yeah, I think I got it because I wanted to watch Ted Lasso and was it Trip Down or Trip Up with the Ewan McGregor on his bike. That was about the only thing I've watched. Kelly says, "Maybe that's why the guilds are too focused on Iger. They're telling us that Disney is the standard bearer of entertainment and nothing else matters." I think it's definitely a case that Disney is definitely the prime target. Right, let's have a look at this poll, see what we've got here. So how much do you think Hulu will be worth? 47% of you say 27.5. 39% of you say 30 billion. So nearly, I mean, we're looking at what, 85% of us think it's going to be under 30 billion. 9% of you think it's over 40 billion. I think that's a bit much, because the trouble is with Hulu, and this is that weird thing, if you look at it and go, right, if you look at it as a separate thing, if Disney decided to take all of its content off of it and decided, like, we don't want any of our content on there, we're going to take ESPN off, we're going to take all of our movies, all of our shows, and we're not making any originals for it. Well, there goes up probably like most of their licensed content. If you take away all of the add-ons like Stars and Showtime and Max, Hulu is even smaller. Suddenly then, like, well, what's left? It can't launch internationally because it's got no content. There's nothing on there. There's no branding. They'd have to launch it with basically nothing on. It's like there isn't really. It's kind of one of the things you're spending that much. It's a thing that's worth 30 billion, but it was only worth 30 billion to someone who's going to buy it. And unfortunately, it doesn't really have a lot, I don't think, to do anything. So I'm going to end that poll. Let's do something a little bit more fun. So I'm going to do another poll here. So we're going to do, what did you think of the Destination D23 review? So this is theme parks. Loved it. Meh. And I didn't like. And let us know in the comments as well. Feel free to add that in. All right, and obviously you can vote if you are not a member. If you're not a member, you can still vote. Matt says, "What do you think what do you think Disney Plus will look like after it merges with Hulu?" I think it's going to be it's going to give it a little bit of a fresh lick of paint. It's not going to look anything massively different because, let's be honest, all streaming services look very similar. There's little square boxes. Maybe a little bit more integration, more hubs, a little bit more easier to find stuff. I think they've probably been I would hope they have been fine-tuning everything they've been learning from people. But also at the same time, no need to reinvent the wheel. It works. You just have to make, I think, just a little bit more options, a little bit more changes and stuff would be nice. Cetan says, with the reduced resistance with reduced reliance on Marvel and Star Wars shows in the coming Hulu integration, do the 5 or 6 hubs that grace Disney Plus branding from the start make sense anymore? I think they've tried to reduce the mere categories to, as the Hulu Star content may be further divided into brands. I personally don't think we need to have those brands anymore. Generally, I don't think we need that kind of core messaging of like these are the core brands. But I think Disney are probably going to lean on this a lot in the United States for at least another year, 18 months, while they sort out this Hulu thing. Because I feel like if you put, like we've had with that Star thing, where you put that Hulu little tab on it, it will have meaning in the US, unlike the Star brand internationally, and it will just allow them a little bit more flexibility of, in some way, of getting you in there and then kind of separating it from the Disney content. That might be something that they need to do. I think they're really going to struggle. I think if they just went straight into adding 20th Century and FX, and I think that we need that, but I think then in some ways I can see why there might be a reliance on wanting to do the hub thing. Mamad says, with the Hulu buy-sell agreement being pushed forward to September the 30th, if a deal is reached before the end of the year, when do you think they'll merge both services? So I would look more to see like what they have done with Showtime and Paramount Plus, and maybe not necessarily in the same way, but with Max and Discovery Plus, where I think we're probably more in line with Paramount Plus, where they're going to run the two platforms separately, and Hulu will be that like cheap option for a time being, and Disney Plus will become the premium option, the one that they want to push, and gradually they will get them over, and then they'll probably just merge a lot in at some point. The only issue I do see is with the Hulu+Live TV. That might make things a little bit more tricky. I don't think I'm not necessarily looking at like Max and Discovery. Whether or not there is always maybe like it might go the other way, where Disney Plus is the one with all of it in, and it's one price with everything, and it's a little bit more and it's more expensive, and then Hulu might maybe stay on as like a really cheap version like Discovery Plus maybe for a while maybe they don't want to lose that advertising. That might be a way of them doing it. That could be a way of another way of like looking at it. Tim says, will Disney Plus just keep making new animated Diary of a Wimpy Kid films every year, or could they wait a couple of years for the next film? I don't think they don't want to do live action. I did actually speak with Jeff, the creator of these, last year. I did an interview with him. A really, really great guy. And we know that there's another film. So we know there's 4 films. He's not necessarily doing them in the order of the books. The thing is, these films are cheap. They're cheap to make. They don't need a lot. They don't have a huge advertising budget. So they are much more beneficial for Disney to do them the way they are. The big difference is, and this is the problem with doing a live action one, means that you have a massive problem with the kids because they grow up. The animated one, it's a bit like The Simpsons. In 20 years' time, they can do Diary of a Wimpy Kid number 20, and that kid is going to look the exact same as it did. The voice might change, but yeah, so there is an advantage for them doing it animated. And it says, has Disney prepared the US enough for the one-app experience in the US? No, not in the slightest. At the minute, they're just sprinkling the little news. They are going to have to go in heavy. I don't know. I think that might be, they're going to have to probably wait until they get this deal with Comcast sorted and something signed. So next month, we might going to start seeing, they're going to need to run some serious ad campaigns. They're going to need to do a lot of information. We had it here in the UK and around the world with the Star launch, where you had adverts in cinemas, in newspapers, on television, and within the app as well, telling us that there's something for grown-ups. There's all these parental controls in there. They have got to put all of that, and it's going to take much longer in the US to get people used to it. So I think they're going to need to do like a 3 to 4 week just campaign of just like, boom, it's coming, and be really putting into the idea that this is about making Disney Plus grow. It's going to be fun to watch. I can't wait to see when we get that information. Mamad says, what do you think of Disney pushing Hulu Live TV, and could there be a future for the service after Disney Plus and Hulu merge? Oh, I really don't know. I feel like Hulu Live TV and like YouTube TV and Fubo TV, it all feels a little bit like scraping the barrel of cable television just to grab the last few people that are left. I am not sure that this model is sustainable at any level with the US cable system. I think the trouble is with the cable system is they all got used to being able to charge you guys for everything. So if you wanted satellite television or cable, you had to pay for all of it. Here in the UK, we never had that. If you wanted Sky like entertainment, you had the entertainment bundle. If you wanted the movies, you paid more, and if you wanted sports, you wanted more. Now you could get the combination and it'd be a bit cheaper, but generally, I was never forced to buy the sports channel if I only wanted Sky. I don't have the sports channel. I've been looking at it lately because I want to watch some football. But yeah, in the US it was very different. They just made everyone pay for it, and all the studios, including Disney, were making a lot of money off of this. The system is collapsing because now all the broadband, all the cable companies are going, look, we can't afford to keep doing this. The studios are making this. The whole system is just collapsing, and it's like a deck of cards. And I do think this whole thing with Charter is the start of just the whole thing just crumbling. Babak says, with the Hulu Live subscription increase due to the Spectrum dispute, do you think this will encourage Disney to cut ties with cable sooner and focus on streaming and live TV? I think there's a case. I don't think they're going to. I think they're still going to try and get some scraps. I think the whole thing with them promoting live TV was more of just a trying to save some face of just being like, when people are angry that they haven't got ESPN, they can go like, look, you can get this. You can still get it. So I think that's kind of it, really. Let's have a look here. We've got the live one. Kayla says, I believe that Disney is promoting heavily on Hulu Live TV with the Disney bundle is a test to see how ESPN DTC will run, since it's the closest thing. I think it's more of the case of they are just trying to scrape a little bit of cash together, because why not? And also just trying to make sure that the people that are in the Spectrum area still have access to those channels if they want. The fact that Charter is literally telling people on the front page when you go on the channel for ESPN, I'll go to Fubo. I mean, that's just to me. It says maybe Charter is just like they want out of the television business, and they're using this as a way of letting them go down. Ricardo says, just like Disney is open to the idea of buying a stake on ESPN, do you think they could do the same thing with the parks and attractions and bring in a company specified in that field on board? I don't think there's anybody more. I don't think the term specialist. Disney is the specialist. They are they are it. I mean, most of the people from Universal are from Disney. There's not really a specialist. They have done very well, I think, in Japan with the Oriental company that runs it there. But they're a very different thing. The car parks in Hong Kong and in Shanghai are co-owned by the Chinese government. Disneyland Paris was co-owned by other different ones, but now Disney have full control over it, which I think is better. It definitely seems to be getting better in Paris. I don't think they want to be outsourcing the parks. That is their breadwinner. There's no reason to touch the parks because that's still making them a lot of money. The cruise lines are saying. I think the thing is with ESPN is it's just that the world's changed, and ESPN was like the last thing that they were doing with it. Tim says they last did a live action kid. Yeah, they did about 4 of them, but again, it's very difficult with it. Kyle says if Warner Brothers does split off, maybe Disney could buy the Hanna-Barbera comic. I don't think they'd want it. I don't think Disney right now are not in a situation where they can do acquisitions. And I don't think they're in a position where they can do it. I think they've got too much debt, especially they haven't cleared off the Fox purchase. And then they add in this Comcast deal. They're going to be 50+ billion in debt. They ain't got the cash for this. This is why we are seeing a reduction at the parks, why they are focused more on profitability, because they spent way too much on all this stuff with Fox. And then they brought Fox, and then we had the pandemic. And then we've had the recession. So they've not been able to kind of utilize it. Jonathan says, when do you think we'll get the Echo release date or trailer? I wouldn't bank on anything now with Echo until maybe after Loki is finished, as like a little drop just to kind of keep Marvel fans onto Disney Plus. Maybe by then the Hulu thing might be a bit different, but I wouldn't expect anything until maybe Loki's either over or just coming to an end. Because technically they've not even announced they've officially moved it yet. They should have used the presentation so they confirmed the what if release date. The thing is, today's event at Destination D23 is it's a little bit odd because they did it down in Orlando. It would have they'd have had hard job bringing anybody in for it anyway. It was only an hour and a half long. Now, I know a lot of people were thinking that's an hour and a half long. By contrast, at D23 Expo last year, the Marvel, Star Wars, and the 20th Century Studios presentation was close to 2.5 to 3 hours. The Pixar and the Walt Disney one was about 2 hours, and the Disney Television one was about an hour and a half. What's that, like 5-6? There was like 5-6 hours of presentation, and so it was down to 90 minutes, and it probably actually was only close to 80. Take off a few song and dance routines, it was like an hour. You give him a 10-minute clip of Wish, it's shrinking. The Indiana Jones looks promising with the Indiana Jones attraction. I wish they would have just like properly announced it rather than this whole wishy-washy blue sky stuff. It kind of, it's annoying because they did that last year. Announce that they're doing something with Encanto, just it, and say we're doing something. We're going to let you know when we got full details. Fine. We're going to be starting to demolish Dinoland. I do think changing the dinosaur to Indiana Jones does make sense in some cases because they're actually Dinosaur and the Indiana Jones ride are the same attraction. They are exactly the same. They put the Indiana Jones one in Disneyland. There's also the one in Disney Sea. I think they're the same because I went on the Disney Sea one about 20 years ago in Tokyo. So that was the first time I rode it. Rode it in Japanese. So I think when I went on it last year, it was very similar. So that was it. So the dinosaur one, I do think Dinosaur it wasn't a great movie. It definitely isn't connecting with audiences today. I mean, it has good dinosaurs in it, but I'm sure most people that will go on it have never seen Dinosaur. I think updating it to Indiana Jones is a good idea. I would have liked there to have been the Zootopia ride that they're building in Shanghai, because that would have at least been something different. But maybe they're going to get the Zootopia area anyway someplace, and they can build it then. But in some ways, maybe doing the Indiana Jones ride is probably the easiest one for them to do. They can flick that over much easier. Jonathan said, I would have thought they would have brought more in. Think it was, but yeah, it was a bit meh. It wasn't anything amazing, and I wasn't expecting it. And I also think this is something that it's going to be a little bit difficult next year because they're doing it at D23, but they've just hired an arena out to do it. So if you're getting 15,000 people into a room, you're going to have to 15,000 people. You're going to have to give them something. I mean, there you've got the stars because it's in Los Angeles. That's the other big problem with Orlando. You ain't getting the stars in there because they ain't flying across, and with the actors strike, there's nothing even got rid of that. But at least with the Los Angeles one, they can get the stars in, so that will help boost it up. But also, they'll know that they can plan for that kind of thing. But yeah, expectations. It was kind of, when I did my predictions the other day, it kind of pretty much was it. Really, it was exactly what I thought of. Wish, Marvels, Loki, Ahsoka, and yeah, there wasn't really a lot more on it than that. Ricardo says, just been reported in Latin America that the press release for Discovery Plus in Brazil and Star Plus in Latin stop updating. It could be a sign of a one-app experience in the territory. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's got anything to do with Discovery Plus. I think that's probably different. I do think there's something going on in Latin America. The press site's been down for a while, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, once they sort this Hulu situation out, it would make it a lot easier then for them to just have Disney Plus in Latin America with all the sports. That'd be a lot easier. What will happen if Discovery gets sold to someone like Netflix? Well, Netflix would just have access to lots more shows, lots more classic stuff. Basically, anything that's on Max could shift to Netflix. Not that it will do. The Disney Insider is reporting that the Country Bears are coming back in 2024. Yes, so this was announced on yesterday's Destination D23 Parks panel. They're going to be updating the Country Bears at Walt Disney World with some new songs. So they're going to be like singing country song versions of like the Jungle Book. And I'm in two minds of this because I love the Country Bears Jamboree. I mean, I think you can't see that. I've got a couple of figures down here from their attraction. I think it's cool. I like country music, so I like the music, and so I go there, and it's a nice way to sit down and chilling. But maybe if they keep the one at Disneyland, the original version. But they've got to update these rides. They can't. It's not a museum, and I think some people get that thing of, our kids today going to Country Bears, is maybe not so as appropriate for some of the things that they talk about. Maybe not quite Disney 2020s. I get it, and in some ways, I'd rather they do this than completely demolish it. So you still get it. I'm going to eventually. I'm hoping at some point in the future we'll go back to Disney World. It's probably going to be a few years. I don't think got any. I'd rather we like to say I'm at the minute like the D23 Expo is just much more interesting than the Destination D23. Right, let's carry on with some of the other questions. So Babak says, do you think Dancing with the Stars will improve its ratings given the new host lineup and it being on ABC, Disney Plus, and Hulu? I mean, it's definitely going to increase its viewership over last year. We never got told how it did. That's never a good sign with a show when Disney don't tell you how good it's doing, because that means it isn't. I think it was a mistake them taking it off of ABC, in all fairness. I think it was the wrong show to do it. I think running it on both makes a lot of sense. Putting it on Hulu is just like, well, whatever. But I think it is going to do a lot better. As far as the host, it did seem like Tara, a lot of people didn't seem to like her as a presenter. I'm really hoping that we actually get it here in the UK as well, because I like I like Strictly Come Dancing as well. Kelly says, now that the Comcast said that the Hulu transaction will take place at the end of September, what do you predict the terms will be regarding price, and what will Disney buy the remainder of? I'm going to guess about $7 to $8 billion, which is because I think Comcast's stake is probably only maybe about 25%. They're probably going to get paid off in some ways to get all the litigation and all the rest of it be done. NBC's content will be removed from Hulu as well. I'm thinking about 7 or 8 billion. Daniel says, "What now that Disney can buy Hulu as early as September? Do you think they are already far enough along that they'll already come to an agreement and didn't want to wait till 20? I think they've got an agreement, and I do think it's going to get announced very soon." Babak says, "Could Disney break away from the AMTV and just negotiate with the writers and actors themselves?" They could do, but again, if they do this is going to cause chaos, because then also, but the trouble is as well, and this is the other thing is let's say Disney broke away and did this, they could end up signing a deal that is financially worse for them than, say, if the other studio stay together. So suddenly then, in like a year's time, that when Disney is going to do a show, it's in theory costing them more to make than any of the other studios that kept together, because they agreed to this something else. And suddenly then that puts them at a business disadvantage. So while the look is like right now, it might be better now, the long-term value, I can see why the business might not want to do it. I mean, I completely understand why the writers union are going this strategy to try and make everyone second guess. But yeah, that's it. And it says, how do you get the news from Disney's earnings and investor calls? Basically, Disney have their own official investors section on the official website, and you get the cast, you get the SEC filings, so everything there that they legally have to put out gets put in there. And it's amazing how much like stuff gets put in there, but it's buried under forms and documents and stuff. And yeah, it's been one of those really weird things of like, I never really envisioned myself kind of looking into it. But also what I do now is I listen to quarterly results of Netflix and Comcast. Usually I've been listening to because of Hulu. I like listening to some of the other ones to see what's going on in other, like Warner Brothers and stuff, because it's a good idea of just getting an overall picture of the business as a whole. So you're not just purely focused just on what Disney's doing. So you kind of got a good understanding of what they're all doing. So I tend to do that. Connor says, what do you think the future lies for the Hulu brand once the full merger happens? I think Disney are going to use the Hulu brand as a crutch for getting the mature content onto Disney Plus and getting people used to it being there. I wouldn't be at all surprised if the Star brand was rebranded Hulu just to make it so marketing is a lot easier. And so it's a lot easier for them to say, this is a Hulu original on Disney Plus. Just easier. It's just, or even then, it's just an original on Disney Plus. Eventually, they can get to it. I think like they might, and I think we will. I think they're going to get rid of the Star branding for a lot of it. I think we're going to see. I do think they'll get rid of it. Okay, C-Tan says, at first, Disney Plus and Hulu will be two separate services in one app, but I think eventually they will merge and only either brand will prevail, at least in the US market. Looking at how things are, it could be Hulu because it's got better brand recognition, while Disney Plus and Hotstar could be kept for the international markets. I used to think all Disney streamers globally will eventually unite and become a single entry like Netflix, but given the recent troubles, looks like that won't be the case. I kind of disagree on that because I would say it's the exact opposite, because we're actually seeing the opposite taking place where the Hotstar branding is being used less, and they don't need the Hotstar stuff is established from years ago. And I think if Disney sell out a load of assets in India, they might get rid of the Hotstar brand and just be Disney Plus. Star Plus again in Latin America, no branding. They can merge that in with Disney Plus. Globally, it makes them a lot stronger with the Disney Plus brand. Now, you mentioned this thing with Hulu branding. Some people say, well, why don't they just get rid of Disney Plus, put it all into Hulu, and then that'd be easier? Because the simple thing is, it's the Walt Disney Company. It is their brand. They made Disney Plus. There is Disney Parks. It is Disney. They are not Hulu. Hulu was a brand that is something like, I think, if I remember right, it's a Chinese haiku or something. It's meaningless to the concept of the company. And Disney Plus, when they talk, I mean, this was the key thing. Disney did their annual shareholders event, and they did this whole thing, and they said Disney Plus, our premium streaming app. Didn't even mention Hulu. Disney, it's the same thing as with Warner Brothers when Discovery bought Warner Brothers. They slipped the Discovery name in there. Probably people at Warner Brothers most of them would get rid of the Warner Brothers and just call it Discovery if they could. But Hulu is a brand that was created not by Disney. It doesn't have. It's a push. What does it mean? And it's very, very interesting to see how it comes in. But yeah, let us know what you guys think of that. Right, let's count going on the live chat. Barbara Trolling says, how likely was David Zaslav sell Warner Brothers with Discovery? I think he's going to sell bits of it off. I think that's going to be how it will be. So Suna says, do you think Full House will be on Disney Plus when it merges? I don't think Disney own now, do they? Full House. It was on ABC, but I think it's actually owned by Warner Brothers. Yeah, probably not. Again, this is the kind of difference sometimes of shows that aired on a Disney network don't necessarily have to be a Disney show. Carl says, have you seen the rumored title for the What If Season 2? No, not yet. Tim says, why is it a Christmas movie? Cabin Fever, I think, is a Christmas story. So I think he's merged two of the stories together. Kaylee says 7 to 8 billion makes a lot of sense. I do think there will be due diligence since both sides have to agree and they don't want to rush things and let NBC take the remainder of their content from Hulu. I think there's ultimately as well, from Comcast's point of view, they can try and big it up. They can try and say they get all this and they get this and it's worth this. And if they put it out on there, it could be worth the same as Netflix. Well, yeah, because essentially they are trying to sell the house or the car and trying to get more money for it. It's ultimately, yeah, there is the Hulu value is dropping and it's not as much as it was. But they're lucky they've got that 27.5 billion, because I think if that wasn't in there, things would be a lot harder, because I think it'd be valued even less. I think it would, because I think Disney could really essentially then they could, if there wasn't a bottom line, I think Disney could just basically just whip everything out from it, and it would be left and be they would basically have to close it down. I think that would be what would happen. Kayla says, random thought, when the One App Experiences launches, I could see a collab with CCN where Luke does a first impression review discussing it. Since, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this works with the US side of things. It's going to be, let's see how that comes together. Tim says, when could we see a trailer for Dashing Through the Snow and the Santa Clauses? Can we get into like December? Well, not December, ideally December, but can we get into like October at least? Maybe even into November. I know it's a little bit late for them, but this week here in the UK, it has been the hottest week of the year. It's over 30 degrees. I've got my fan on here. I've had my air conditioning unit down here. I've pulled it out of the spare room because it's been so hot. It hasn't been on all summer because it's been so bad. So I pulled the air conditioning unit out. It is absolutely roasting in here. It is currently 27 degrees in this office, and it is 8 o'clock at night. It is roasting. And I've had to do all these stories on Santa and Santa Clauses and Dashing Through the Snow and the cabin fever. And I am not. And I was in the supermarket this morning getting a few things, Christmas puddings and mince pies, and it's like, no, it's the middle. It's literally the middle of summer. It's too early to be doing this stuff. And then my wife said she's already started buying Christmas presents. And I was like, no. So yeah. So for me, I would like to at least get into October. Let's get at least September out of the way first. It's like today we were in Starbucks and they had like the pumpkin spice lattes and the things like that, and it was just, I know the decoration. I mean, I'll put all the Halloween decorations up like on the 1st of October, but it just feels a bit early. Matt says, I think if Disney Plus and Hulu do merge, the combined service will be Disney Plus for the sake of worldwide integration. I can't see international markets launching Hulu now. This has actually been an issue that Comcast said Disney sabotaged it because they said that they were going to do it. There is absolutely no way that Disney can launch Hulu here in the UK right now. They can't take that content off of Disney Plus and start charging you for a separate service. So that's a problem straight away. They can't take away, the whole Star tab and go, well, we're going to take that away and make you pay. Well, that's not going to work, especially since they already know that the Star tab actually works really well here in the UK and around the world because it helps keep people subscribed, and that's why America's getting it, because of it. But also, it's that kind of thing as well of what would they have on it? I mean, they could launch it as a fast service, but it seems, to be honest, it would make more sense just to do what they're doing now. License shows out and films out to streaming services and fast services internationally, take that money and keep Disney Plus as a core thing. Launching internationally makes no sense. Tim says, after Christmas Day in Australia, they always have hot cross buns in the shops. They still had hot cross buns in the supermarket yesterday when I was looking, when I did the shop. They did actually have hot cross buns. It always got me because I was out in Australia, about 15 plus years ago now, and because I'd been out there for months, and it was all like around Christmas time, and I literally flew home like Christmas Eve, and it was really weird seeing. I mean, I have done Christmas in the sun and stuff, but it's just really weird, like being same thing like Hawaii and places like when you're there at like around Christmas time, and you're just like. It doesn't, because I'm used to it being dull and dreary and cold and wet, and maybe luckily a bit of snow. So having like shorts on and sun is just really weird for Christmas. I know, like if you're in Australia, that's what you associate with Christmas, but probably for the rest of us, it is odd. Matt sees, didn't Comcast even stop investing in Disney Plus after the whole Disney Plus Star thing? That could be a factor that reduces the value of their Hulu. Yeah, so I mean Hulu rather than Disney Plus. Yeah, so the deal was. Comcast still had to invest money into Hulu after they made the agreement, and if they stopped doing that, it would mean that their value would be decreased. Now you got to look at it the other way. If you are Comcast, and we do know that Disney were funding Hulu completely because Comcast pulled that in. No worries, Matt. I totally understood where you're coming from, and. So with this here, it basically if they were putting say like 1.5 billion a year, and they haven't put that in for like 2-3 years, that would devalue the percentage of how much they own depending on the valuation. But in some ways, from Comcast's point of view, it kind of makes sense. Like, why would they give Disney like $1.5 billion to invest in Hulu in the hope that you're going to get back maybe more, a little bit more in a few years. And you were like, well, actually, it's not. So we're just going to just take it off. And in some ways, Comcast saved that money then, and it helped their books back then. And I think in some ways it's made Disney streaming look worse off because they've been funding Hulu so much more. Right. On that note, I think that's probably a good time because we've finished all the questions. So big thank you to everyone for joining. I'll be back next week for another live Q&A. Look out this week for new news videos. I've got enough stories for tomorrow already. So that's always a good thing. Yes, I'll be back during the week for that one. Again, big thank you to all of our Patreon and YouTube channel members for your continued support. Really means a lot. And on that note, guys, thank you very much. And I'll see you guys soon. Laters.